Is the housing market going to crash in 2022? With interest rates going from 2.6% all the way up into 5.6%, that's a difference of 3%. That 3% interest rate increase is equal to about 30% of buying power lost. So are we going to see a 2008 style crash? Are real estate prices going to go down at all? That's what we're going to cover right now. So at first glance, we're going to start to see that the inventory levels are starting to shift, as well as the prices are starting to cool down. As you can see in this map right here, we're starting to see a major shift of housing inventory, especially in the West. It's starting to indicate there's few different states and few different areas that the housing crash may have actually started, especially in places like Arizona, Utah. There you can see that they're almost up 100% in their inventory year over year, versus places in the Northeast like New York and Ohio with, their inventory levels not really shifting at all. And at the same time, if you look at the average list to sell ratio, we're starting to see a little dip, and it just started within these past few months. We're also starting to see a major increase of active listings with price drops all through the US. And another major number to look at right here is this chart, where we can see that we're now up to nearly 15% of homes falling through. That's one of the fastest increases since 2020, which was the beginning of the pandemic. So now overall, with our 3% increase in our rates, decreasing our buying power by about 30% overall, that including a 15% cancellation rate, and inventory levels starting to rise, price drops starting to rise. This is a great indicator that we're going to start to see within the next few months in closed sales data, the purchase prices to now finally start falling. So to sum it up overall, we now have 15% increase overall in cancellations. What that's indicating is that we're having some fear within the market. People are scared. They're not sure if they're paying for overpriced properties. They don't know what's going on. So you're starting to see an increase of cancellations. On top of that, we saw an increase of 3% in interest rates, which again equates to about 30% in buying power. So with that 30% decrease in purchase power, that's going to start to lead to what we're seeing now, which is an increase in active inventory in the market right now. And with that increase, we're starting to see an increase of price drops. While all this is going on, we're starting to see mortgage equity withdrawal is now at the highest level in 2022 since the Great Depression. We're starting to see lots of homeowners are starting to take all of their equity out of their homes so they can have it cash on hand for whatever reasons, whether that be to invest in the future real estate market or they're worried about the prices dropping. And we now even have the Federal Reserve stating that there is a growing concern that U.S. housing prices are again becoming unhinged from fundamentals. But now is very different than 2008. Back then, during that housing crash, about 30 to 40% of individuals had an ARM loan or an adjustable rate mortgage. Now, only about 5 to 7% of people have an adjustable rate mortgage, as well as the average credit score of a homeowner is now about 100 points higher than they were back in 2008. All those signs are indicating that the homeowners nowadays are a lot more qualified, as well as a lot more educated than they were back then, as well as there are no more ninja loans. And that stands for no income, no job, no assets. That does not happen anymore with all of the regulations and laws that have been put in place within the mortgage industries. And though foreclosures are currently going up, they're increasing, but they're still lower than pre-pandemic levels. So can the market not crash at all and maybe just soften? The only way that I would see a larger correction would be if the mortgage rates start to go up even more than what they're at now. The most important thing to look at right now would be the 10-year US Treasury yields, in which we are now currently at 3.02%. As of right now, we are steady right around a 5.5% rate. If we start to see the US Treasury yields increase all the way up to 4%, we're most likely going to see an increase in interest rates, and it's going to be anywhere from 6.5 to 7.5% for your average interest rate. And then at that point, you would most likely see a 10 to 15% decrease in prices overall. The only way we would most likely see a 20 to 25% decrease is if we see that Treasury yield stay at that 4%, which would equate to the 6.5 to 7.5% for longer periods of time, for years on end. And then at that point, we could see the 20 to 25% decrease. But overall, the 20 to 25% decrease price overall, what that's going to do is just bring us to pre-pandemic levels, essentially. So that little bubble run that we've been on since 2020, that will just most likely be wiped out overall. Anything past that would most likely be very drastic, and I really don't see happening. But currently, within the 10-year US Treasury yield, it's projected that they're going to stay right around that 3% mark. So if we're able to stay between that 3.02 to 3.15%, I think everything will be okay. Rates will slightly increase, potentially up to 6% overall, but if we're able to stay at that consistently over the next few years, I would not suggest that we're going to see any major price drops overall. But what we're going to see instead is just a steady value, right? We're going to see average normal real estate in which you may only see 0 to 3% increase in value over the next few years per year. So what are you going to do with all of that info that you just got? How are you going to apply that to yourself? So I would say if you own real estate right now, the best option would be to hold, right? That would probably be the safest option that you could potentially choose, because if you hold instead of selling right now, because when you sell, you're going to pay anywhere from 7 to 10% in fees overall when you sell your property, as well as you're going to be paying capital gains taxes on top of that. So if you chose to sell now, you're still going to have to pay most likely the same percentage that you would have to pay if you held your property and then you just saw a slight decrease in value. You'd most likely end up walking away with roughly the same amount of money. So the best bet would most likely be to just hold on to that asset. And while you have that asset right now, as we're seeing a lot of people take their equity out of their home, right? We're seeing the largest amount of individuals do that since the '08 times. So it might make sense for you to pull that cash out if you are worried about values decreasing, to just pull out that 80% that you could possibly get right now of your home's value and equity and have that in your pocket, whether it be for reinvesting it back into real estate or starting a business or whatever you wanted to do in the future. But that might be a great option as well. So if you currently don't own a home, the best option would most likely be to wait overall, because we are starting to see an increase in inventory and a slight decrease in price drops as well as time on the market. So what that's going to do for you is you might not necessarily get an amazing deal, but overall you're going to have lots of options, right? So you're going to be able to find the right home in the right location for the right price. Unlike before, when you'd see a ton of bidding wars, you'd see it's very, very hard to get a property where you want to get it. Essentially, you might have more options available. So I'd say just wait until you can find the right one for you and your family. The next option would be most likely the riskiest, and this would be to sell your properties now and wait for prices to drop to rebuy back into the market. That would be an option. Or it would be to sell your homes now while real estate is at an all-time high and potentially invest in stocks. As of right now, we're seeing an all-time low overall for the current stock market we've seen. So essentially what I'm talking about is timing the market, which nobody can specifically time the market, but as of right now, if you could sell your home at an all-time high and potentially invest in stocks while they're at all-time lows, you're gonna start to see that inverse, right, of real estate prices starting to go down potentially and stock prices starting to rise up, and you may be able to catch it at that perfect wave overall. Again, very risky and nobody can time the market, but that is another option for you. But truthfully, the most important thing for you to do if you're worried about the housing market is to get educated. That is your number one source of value, and that is how you can make lots and lots of money in no matter what market you're in. So if you like the content, make sure you subscribe for more videos like this. Comment down below, let me know what you think is going to happen by the end of 2022, and I will see you guys in the next video.